That gives your,
All right, welcome everybody. I think it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order, the Bennington Board of Education on this June 9th, gosh, June already. We'll begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we begin our meetings are governed by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is located on the back wall. Jody has verified publication and notification for our meeting this evening, so thank you for that, appreciate that. This is now the time for folks to address the board as per our public forum. So if anybody's interested in doing so, we have some gold colored sheets in the back of the room here. And fill one of those out, bring those forward, bring it to Jody. We're happy to hear from you this evening. And as far as crowd, I don't know if this is the summer crowd or what. I don't see anybody that would like to speak. All right, that brings us to our consent agenda of the board meeting, which includes the approval of the agenda, approval of our minutes from our May 12th regular board meeting, presentation of June bills for approval and payment, as well as our personnel report. Who had bill review? It was not me this month. All right. Jeremy and Tim, anything you wish to share with the board that stood out to you, or?
Just a couple things we talked about. The special election price was in there for $23,734, and the DLR tennis court payment to get the tennis courts rolling, so we have ready for next year, $21,500, and then paid off some bonds of $4.35 million. So that's the main ones that we've seen that need to be addressed. So,
all right, any questions? Otherwise, there's a motion on the floor.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
second,
Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll.
Joe?
yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Roughly quiet. Is your mic on?
Was, now it's on.
Okay. Making sure your vote is counted. Okay. Next up is the reports and presentation to the board section, which I believe brings up Mr. Boyce, the elementary report.
Good evening. Chad Boyce, principal at Point Elementary. Summer is off. As Dr. Plaza and I were just talking, we've got about 8,000 things you need to do, and you go back and you start reflecting on the end of the year, and you kind of trip that up. And anyway, so backing up to the end of the year, we had a great end of the year, and our board report really focuses on our current summer school and then the end of the year stuff that we did include. So our summer school has just over 200 students. Our goal is about 10% of students will be in summer school each year. The state kind of dictates with our reading improvement plans who first gets those seats, and from there we kind of just have our teachers work through that. So you can see that we have right around 80 at Bennington Elementary, and then Stratford has 132 students this year. So a good population of students are going to that. And then our end of the year celebrations, there's so many things that all 5 of our buildings continue to do together, whether it's fun day and those end of the year celebrations for 5th grade. One of the things I did want to highlight is we did make Anchor Point, we made friendship bracelets at last week at school for our cruise activity. And our cruise, all 5 buildings do some sort of mixed age level grouping lessons that are focused on whether it's respect or some sort of school improvement goal. And this year ours was respect, and we did friendship bracelets. And it's actually an activity that was so well received that we actually went ahead and booked it for next year too. So we went ahead and wrote that into our end of the year plans. But really strong end of the year. Our teachers were excited to get into the summer, but I think we have a lot of reflecting, a lot of great growth this year, and I think you'll see that next year too as we move into the new year with our new plans that we're currently completing. Any questions for the elementary?
Sure.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Leadership.
All Great, Ms. Racklebeck? Thanks, Ms. Fowler? Thanks, Rob.
Good evening, Lee Southwell, principal at Bennington South Middle School. May was a busy month at the middle school level full of recognition and activities. We recognized our 8th graders departing for bigger and better things at the high school by going to spare time for both middle schools. It's always a fun way to celebrate the end of the year. We also had a fine arts night I wanted to point out on May 15th. Was a combined band performance. We took the opportunity at South to turn it into a fine performance night where we had our drama club perform. We had our art displays across the building as well. And what other better way to have a corn dog food truck as well at the event. Also highlighting our jazz band, marimba ensemble as well. Everyone did a wonderful job. And then lastly, also a part of our recognition for our 8th graders on May 14th, the select group who were recognized for 8th grade Rotary Honor Roll were able to attend a luncheon. It's, I think, the second year in a row since COVID where they've been in person. And so a better opportunity with just that luncheon and the opportunity to connect. We were selected as a school to have a guest speaker. So Delaney Green from Bennington South spoke at the luncheon and did a wonderful job as well. And then currently we have summer school going on at the middle school, at Bennington Middle School, and have 44 students currently enrolled. Any questions from the middle school?
I just want to clarify, this isn't like a luncheon, in the church basement with 50 people. It is 1,200 people that are at this luncheon at CHI. So being able to speak in front of all 1,200 people, Delaney did awesome. It was really cool.
All right, Mr. Pestle for the high school.
1,200 people is definitely a lot to struggle in front of 30, so anyhow, that's awesome. Dr. Lamberty gave me the privilege of presenting the high school report tonight, so happy to be here to do that. We started with summer school. We have 28 students registered at the high school level. Summer school is primarily credit recovery, and so I think that dovetails nicely with the third bullet point about our student success rates this year for grades 9 through 11. We had benchmarks and goals that we had set at the beginning of the school year for how many students would pass every single class, and we exceeded those in all those grade levels. And so as a result, we don't have as many students in credit recovery, which ultimately is a good thing because they're moving toward graduation. And so those numbers are pretty phenomenal. Our NTSS team, which targets students that hit early indicators of maybe struggling a little bit, then they provide interventions to those students in collaboration with teachers. Danny Gray, Abby Jones, and Cody Mobiles deserve a lot of credit for those numbers in conjunction with our staff. So just phenomenal stuff there. Obviously, we had graduation, which was a great event. The weather held and no rain this year, which was wonderful. And 235 graduates walked. A lot of times we get all of our students across, but maybe not in time for graduation. This year, 235 went across, and that's how many we had. So that was a perfect success, which is pretty rare, and we're really excited about it. So kudos to our staff again. Some athletic highlights there. Girls track and field deserves special recognition as the first NSAA girls state champion in Bennington High School history. So, and there's some other highlights as well. We started on the backside of my page, anyhow, we started summer conditioning. 450 student athletes registered right now. Coach Mimic, Coach Suey, and our coaching staff for having an organized way to get those students through to get a quality workout and then work with their coaches and manage all that. Deserve lots and lots of credit for giving our students so many opportunities over the summer to improve their skills. Youth camps going on as well. And then obviously we had the opportunity to be involved with Bennington Days last week. They expected 1,000 people. In the high school commons for the picnic, and then they moved out for a fireworks show that Mr. Hankey, our choir director, put on. So pretty exciting stuff to be involved with the community that way. So those are the highlights that I have. Included some pictures as well of our, some of our teams that, the spring just had a lot of success. So some highlights there. Does anybody have any questions for me that I might answer? All right, I appreciate you allowing me to answer.
Thank you. All right, student services. Mr. Bonda.
Hi, Dan Bombeck, Student Services. I wanted to kind of report out on the attendance for this year, where we landed. I think we had a couple of successes in this. 96%, it was our overall attendance rate, that's per population. So on any given day, we had 96% of our students attending school, which is phenomenal. I think that kind of shows a very, a picture of just the dedication our community has to education, the parents' thoughts on that, as well as our teachers' dedication to their students and the relationships they build, that the students want to be at school every day. But with everything, there is always the other side of that. We did have a little bit of chronic absenteeism in the district, 6.77% across the district. Gives us a little bit of a highlight of some areas we need to work on and continue to lean into our absent matrix when students are showing that there are signs of chronic absenteeism. But overall, I think the success is we showed 6.77 this year. Last year, the state average was 22%. So we're significantly lower than that. I think that's a success there. So any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Tyndall?
Good evening, Shannon Tyndall, Director of Elementary Education. Tonight's CIA board report includes some highlights that are going on this summer. Even though school's out, our department is already closing and beginning to plan for next year. So it's a busy time of year for us. Last week, we finished all our initial trainings of implementation teams for all the curriculums we adopted for next year. These teams are trained on the materials, and then through the summer months, they'll write the curriculum, they'll match them to the standards, they'll do a pacing guide, what it looks like, develop assessments and different things, and then they'll present it to the whole staff at the beginning of the year. And so if you keep going, you heard the principals highlight some of the summer school, but I wanted to highlight one summer learning opportunity. Every year, our elementary students take home the Summer Bridge activity pages, and there's one for reading and math, and it's full of summer activities. Included in that is their clever login, so they can get into our digital curriculums, such as IXL, and do extra practice through the month of June. It does shut down in July, so we can roll our system over for the upcoming year. But great opportunity for kids to practice and decrease that some slide from what they learned at the end of the year to being ready and prepared for the beginning of the next year. And then summer school, like I said, the principals highlighted. I want to highlight some of our professional learning that's coming up, and what we just had last week. Our principals, our building level and district level administration participating in a training on our new instructional model and our appraisal system. It was very beneficial. We had great talks on consistency, how to develop our instructional staff, and make them even stronger in the classroom. And it was very beneficial for all of us. And we know the most important thing is our teachers in that classroom, and so we want to give them the tools and be strong instructional leaders. And then we have new teacher induction coming up July 16th. We'll already have staff in for the next year. And then August 7th will be here before you know it. So we have a plan to send out around July 15th, all our opening information. So it'll be a busy time in the next few weeks for Mr. Feed and I. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Lincoln?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's me.
I think I messed it up on the three off.
Matt Willican, Assistant Superintendent. This is our annual resignation and staffing report for the year. Stacy, if you want to go ahead and just scroll down to the numbers there. You can see there's a 5-year summary. Some of the highlights this year, outside of those numbers, again, had well over 100 interviews that I conducted throughout the course of the year for staff in the HR department. Had an opportunity to go to, I believe, 6 job fairs this year, and had some success grabbing some first-year teachers and some student teachers out of that job fair. We actually are going to have 6 student teachers at Bennington Public Schools starting in the fall. This last fall we had 3, and so we have student teachers from Wayne State, UNO, UNK, UNL, Chadron State University, and actually Rockhurst down in Kansas City in the areas of K-5, 6-8, and speech language pathologists, which I don't think we've had in quite some time as far as a speech language pathologist. So finding staff to come work for us, finding some student teachers to come that we like to get here and train them on the way that we do things with, we believe, really quality teachers and administrators and counselors in those buildings, and then turn around and hire them for positions the following year. So a good opportunity to do that. Again, certificated staff, 24, 25. Look at the staff that's leaving. We're down to 6.7% turnover rate, which is down from 9.5, 10.9, 12, and then 8.3 for the 5-year. 5-year numbers. Again, that's something that we try to focus on. Had the opportunity to give the end of the year survey that we've always done to staff that are leaving. Have data from that survey, give them the opportunity to contact me and meet in person if they would choose to do so, to sit down and have an exit interview. Didn't have anybody choose to do that this year. We had 3 the following year. So just a few things on where we're at. Scroll down, I think, Stacy, just a little bit more. Yeah, classified staff members. Not as great, 25.6% turnover from for the year. Just a reminder that is throughout the course of the whole year. Of those 42, we had a handful that we were able to hire back. Of those 42, we have some paraprofessionals that have gotten their substitute teaching license, and we're hiring them as substitute teachers. Of those 42, we have 1 that is one of the student teachers that's coming to us. And of those 42, we have 2 staff members that have earned their degree and that we've hired as teachers in the district for the 25-26 school year. So still working on classified staff. Hiring, retaining, and recruiting is still at the front of my desk as an HR director. And Dawn and Darcy and Lynn and I and Mike are working to continue to reach out in as many ways as we can to hire particularly paraprofessionals, cooks, and bus drivers is where we have the most report. So that is the report for this year. A little bit of data in there. Questions I might be able to answer for any of you.
One question on the folks, up a little bit on the folks that are moving to another district for a job change. Do we have any indication, are they looking for leadership opportunities? Is that pay related? Those are the ones I pay attention to.
Yeah, a lot of time it's moving. My husband's moving, my wife is moving, so I'm getting a position there. Position-wise, we don't have anybody, to my knowledge, that took a position in a leadership role in another district, meaning administration or counseling at this point, even lead teacher or something of that nature. It's strictly a lateral move. So,
If you see any changes, make sure you let us know.
absolutely. Other questions I can answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent report.
Okay, I'm going to start with just some administrative changes for next year. We have 3 new administrators that are coming on board that we're excited to welcome. First one is Megan Christensen, who will be the new assistant principal at Anchor Point. She comes to us from Millard, where she's a kindergarten teacher at Ezra Elementary, brings 20 years of classroom experience, member of the leadership team, and she's going to be a really good asset for us, and we're excited to couple her up with Mr. Boyes at Anchor Point. She's going to do really good things, and also a community member. Laura McGrew will be transitioning from her position as an English teacher at the high school into the Dean of Students role. And so she'll be mostly overseeing attendance and discipline and supervising some of our classified staff. She's been with us for 17 years, so has a lot of background knowledge on our district and Bennington High School specifically. So we're excited to utilize her knowledge and her skill set in a little bit different capacity next year. And then the third one is Jerry Kalina, which will serve as an interim assistant principal at Bennington High School for us next year. We had a late resignation just a couple weeks ago, and Mr. Kalina has agreed to come in and help on a 1-year role. We feel like we really made out really well on this. He had been in administration for over 20 years. He was the head principal at Papillion, retired, I think, right after COVID, so like 2021-ish. And not only does he have all that experience, he's got experience with a larger district, a growing district, So we're looking forward to not only just utilizing him as an assistant principal during his 1 year, but tapping into that experience to see how he can help Bennington into the future as well. So we're excited about our 3 new administrative teammates. The second thing I have on there is a budget update. We're getting closer to the 25-26 general fund budget. Every day it tweaks and changes a little bit, but we're getting closer. As of right now, we're anticipating about $2.5 million of additional revenue for next year, which is just about a 5% increase compared to this year, which feels like a decent amount, but if you reverse, you remember that we went down in revenue this year 2.5%. And so over a 2-year period, we've actually increased revenue just over 1% a year each of the last 2 years. And so we were able to navigate that revenue decrease this year of nearly $1.4 million. And we'll see a revenue increase of about 5% next year. Don't hold me to that exactly, but we're getting pretty close and feel pretty confident in it. The Building and Finance Committee will be reviewing the preliminary budget on June 24th, and then it'll come back to the Board of Education for our budget retreat, which will be on July 16th. Legislative updates. The legislative session is now ended. It feels like it lasted about 3 months too long, but we finally got her done with and kind of know what impacts we're going to have within the education world for the upcoming year. Just want to highlight a few of those. First one is the cell phone policy. We now have a bill that requires each district to have a policy addressing cell phone usage. It begins with a baseline of prohibited on school grounds, and then provides 5 options if you want to allow cell phones at activities or whatever. So we now have to have a policy addressing that, which we will have introduced yet tonight. Just kind of a reminder of what we have done that fits within this already within our school system is it's not allowed K through 8. At the high school level, it's not permitted during instructional time. So that fits. Second thing is the Education Funding Committee. This originally started as a TIOSA bill for school finance. There was no funds available within our state this year, and so almost anything that came with a price tag got thrown out. They did pull the School Finance Review Commission out of this bill, and it was approved and signed by the governor. Essentially, I have a commission of about 18 people, state senators, board members, school superintendents, patrons, state officials, and that committee will review TIOSA each year. It'll be able to look at the nuances within the system and make recommendations to the body. It will have no governing authority, but it will be able to have provide recommendations and hopefully build a pipeline of people to truly understand the TIOSA model, a place where senators can go to that commission or folks on the commission where they're able to answer their questions and maybe create a little longevity to that as well. So that was passed. The third thing this year is the IMPERS contribution. The legislature created a tiered system for contributions for both the educators, the district, and then the state. And so it's based on the actuarial study of how well the IMPERS system is doing. They will do that each November based on how well the funded the plan is. It'll change the contribution rates for the individual, the district, and then the state. And so as of last November is at 99.9% funded, which is amazing and doing really well. And so every year in November, they'll look at that, they'll see what the percentage is, and everybody's contribution will change annually. So this has some good and some bad to it, depending on what happens within that model in the future. Kind of a reminder, those are a few of the things that passed this year that will impact us. There were some things that passed last year that don't go into effect until 25-26. And so you'll see these as well in our policies this year, and that's a dress code. The districts are required to implement a dress code policy beginning of next year to ensure there's not any discrimination within our dress code policy. Explicitly protects the work of travel regalia as well. So we'll have that. Behavior intervention, this was passed last year as well. It essentially says that we have to have a policy that provides how we're going to provide behavior interventions for students. This is really is in line with what we are already doing through the systems that our behavior team has developed over the last couple of years, but we now have to have that within our policy as well. Last one is our parental involvement policy passed 2 years ago. This provides specific requirements for parental access to curriculum materials. This probably won't significantly alter our current practices because of what we typically meet all the criteria within there. But it does formalize those expectations for parent notification, surveys, and addressing sensitive topics. And so we do meet all those, but they will now be within policy as well. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our committee reports. I know the Building and Finance Committee met twice, I think once virtually, is that right? Just once?
I think just once, yes.
We've been meeting a lot, so it's already.
Yeah, just once.
We did discuss the bid process, which I think we're going to talk about this evening, so we can wait and discuss that later. And then the Policy Committee met on short notice after the legislature wrapped up and got all the legal updates for this year, and we'll be addressing those later in the agenda as well. So some committee activities are covered by later items. All right, that brings us to our coordinator report. And that is Stacy Hahn.
All right, so tonight I'm just gonna go a little bit over the survey results that we did over communication. So one thing I like is to be able to kind of evaluate our different communication efforts throughout the year to adjust them, especially with our new platform that we're looking to launch this year as well. So I did both a staff and a parent survey. So staff, we had 431 surveys completed, which is a 78% completion rate. At the certified staff level, we were at about a 97%. So really good participation there. And our parents, we were at 46% completion rate, which is still a really great response rate for a survey to really make it statistically valid. So you can go through a little bit of it. First, we'll start with the staff one. So we asked a lot of different questions. I wanted to know how they like to receive communication. What's their preferred method? And it was the same as it was last year. They like it via email, the principal newsletters that they get, and then also the Badger Memo, which is the district staff newsletter that I send out on Thursdays. And then I asked, what do you receive a lot or a good amount of information or not enough from those avenues? And, principal newsletters was at 83%, a letter, a good amount, meetings with supervisors and the Badger Memo. So those were pretty high up there. The lower ones were more our social media, Facebook, YouTube, which is pretty standard where staff are not gonna go to get staff information. The other thing I really wanted to know is, do you receive the right amount of information? Too much? Not enough? Or I don't want information. So it was really good to see, we had some high numbers with the employee benefits, school board actions, budget, student achievement, bond issue. So that one went really well as well. And then I wanted to know if they wanted to keep the newsletters at the same time. So every Thursday afternoon and every Friday afternoon, I send the Badger Memo and the Badger Update. So I just kind of wanted to gauge if everyone wanted to keep that the same, and they did. Definitely did there. And then I asked a few more with our certified staff, especially with our new communication platform, Parent Square. There's a lot more and new options for them to be able to communicate with parents and students. So I kind of wanted to see where they currently are using and everything like that, which is interesting because how teachers are communicating with parents, 63% said on a regular basis they use email, but only 2% that they use School Messenger, which is our current mass communication system. So I'm really interested to see with the new training and the new options with Parent Square to see how those numbers are going to change. Parent survey, we did kind of the exact same type of questions. So receiving a lot or a good amount of information. The top two was a Badger Update and school newsletters. Those are both up from last year. So last year the Badger Update was at 81 and school newsletters last year was at 69%. So that was a really great increase. And I really credit that to our principals and our secretaries with those school newsletters. They do great things with including all the information in those each week. Receiving the right amount of information on those topics, those numbers went up again this year. I find it interesting. Still some of them, like actions taken by the school board and the budget, so some things I want to work on is 25% say they don't get enough information. So I kind of want to see of different ways that we can get more information out about that. And then the last one there on the bottom right, the communication sources that are very important on ways that they get information about their child's overall learning experience. So the most important is from their child's teacher. So, which is what we see pretty consistently. Then again, with our new platform, I want to know how do they like to receive communication. Text messages and emails was the top at 48%, The next one was emails, phone calls, and text messages, so that you kind of pick all the different ones that are available. Again, for examining, yes, keep it the same, the Badger update on Friday afternoons, so we'll be keeping that the same. Also, one thing, just kind of to look at different things of how we use communication with social media, of where our parents are. So 77% of our parents are on Facebook, 40 are on Instagram, 21 on Twitter or X, and 16% on YouTube. So just kind of like to keep an eye on that to see where our audience is and how we can utilize those platforms. And the last one we asked is, what grade would you give district communications? And this year an A or B got 89%, which I was pleasantly happy with. It went up 7%, so last year we were at 82 and we increased to 89 this year. Any questions?
Again, you've done a great job. Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Great job.
Thank you, Stacy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stacey.
All right, next we have our spotlight report, which is Mr. Kessel on our activities for the year.
Encore performance.
There you go.
Yeah, it feels like I was just here. It's funny, time flies, and it goes faster and faster every year. But pleased to be here to talk to you and try to pick out the highlights from the year. I mean, Mr. Boyce talked about reflecting on the school year, and this report always gives me an opportunity to do that and kind of focus on those things. I guess I would just start by saying it's really impossible to smash a whole year of events and successes down into a presentation. But I did my best to get some highlights for you and give you a sense. So obviously just some pictures of things that I thought were representative of the year and cool activities that our kids were involved in this year. Always highlight participation rates. You know, as we get bigger, you're concerned about opportunities for students. It appears this year we had a pretty consistent rate of participation for our students despite some growth. So always happy to see that. Definitely when we see, you know, our 9th and 10th graders participate at those rates, that's getting them off to a good start in school and making them more likely to graduate. Just look at it by program. You can see we do have some individual programs that have grown and continue to grow. In parentheses, you have the numbers from the previous year, and to the left of that, you have the numbers for this year. And some of our programs that, you know, you don't have to make the team necessarily. You can go out. I mean, you see football has grown, track and field has continued to grow, and you know, those programs are amongst the largest in the state. We see some really big growth in our activities. You look at our band numbers there, increased by 35, 36 kids. Musical increases by 24. One act is up by 10. You know, so there's, you know, our fine arts programs there are growing as well. And so we've seen a lot of the growth this year we saw in those categories. And our club levels as well. You know, Mr. Birdie deserves special note for FBLA. You can see that group has more than doubled in the last year under her leadership. It's a future business leaders of America. So great group, and they're doing great things. Student Senate has grown by a lot as well. Accomplishments, you know, you always start with, you know, in the classroom. You can see a lot of academic all AMC performers, so 3.5 or higher, and then those academic all state awards, 3.7 or higher. And junior, seniors only have 2 of those. So at 44 of those students out of 46 possible this year. Special Olympics National Banner Award, if you remember that event, only a handful of schools are recognized for doing that. Dean Wood in particular deserves special recognition for making that happen for our district and all the opportunities him and our special education department provide for our students to be inclusive and provide avenues for that. Based on the spring results and their job, Jocelyn Suey and Justin Horner, our co-head track coaches, were recognized as Nebraska Coaches Association Track and Field Coaches of the Year this year. Pretty special recognition. Coach Alan McCorney is a finalist for National Coach of the Year with the National High School Athletic Coaches Association. And so, you know, when you look at the successes we've had, I mean, that starts with our coaches, and it's good to see them get recognized for that. In competition, 2 state championships this year, including the first ever girls team NSA championship. State runner-up in baseball, boys soccer, wrestling, duels, and football, and cheer and traditional, and some other highlights as well. don't mean to gloss over, but there's a lot here. 8 teams qualified for state championship competition, which, you know, when you go to those events, you can see how special that is for our kids and our community to be involved in those events at a high level. It's just very meaningful for us. So 8 district championships as well this year. Some other accomplishments: 8 state speech qualifiers in 3 different events, 10 all-state choir, band, and orchestra members. I have an asterisk there because that's up. It was 10 as of press time, but we added 2 more all-state first teamers in baseball over the weekend. 5 individual state champions, 5th in the NSA Cup for overall combined performance. Kyler Laritson, who's pictured there with Coach McCorney, became our 4-time state champion in wrestling. I don't know if there's many schools that have 4 over the course of their history. It's pretty phenomenal. And Austin Kaiser broke the NSAA single season and career assist numbers all class. So 2nd year in a row we've had all class, all time record holders. Liv Mock last year in volleyball and Austin Kaiser this year in soccer. And just among the largest unified bowling and unified track teams. So opportunities for kids to be involved. Some priorities for us. Again, they do and they don't change. You know, maybe how we get them done kind of changes, but, you know, we're still about maximizing opportunities. So how do we get that done? You know, we are stretched, and we're working to work through those things and be creative about how we schedule and how we have teams and the opportunities we can provide. You know, as we do grow, cuts across our programs do become more likely, and that, you know, that's a collaboration between me and coaches, and I should say administration and coaches on if a program will do that. And we try to keep that as limited as we can. We try to seek to have as many opportunities as possible. But the numbers they are hitting us kind of in waves, and that's kind of to be expected these next couple of years. And that goes right along with managing space and capacity. How do you do that safely and efficiently so you can get large numbers of kids in and still give them opportunities? And so whether it's practices, games, transportation to events, you know, had a conversation with my volleyball coach. You know, we almost can't get everybody on one bus to head down to play games. And good problem to have that we have lots of kids that want to participate, but it's just you got to be creative in making that happen. And then obviously, what can the facility accommodate? You know, I remember a specific night in the fall where we had JV and varsity softball, and we had lower level football, maybe a 9th grade game, and we had 4 levels of volleyball, and the parking lot's pretty crowded when that happens. So just what can we accommodate? Coach and sponsor compensation, something always kind of at the forefront of my mind in terms of, our coaches and the time they put in, and just something to consider, increasing that compensation to match some Class A schools may make us more competitive, and attracting some future candidates. And that impacts retention and recruitment and what's expected of those coaches. And then the transition to what's next. We will be a Class A school, more than likely. I mean, we're about 50 over that number going into next school year. So that would make us Class A in all sports in 26, 27, and 27, 28. And depending on how things transpire with splitting up the school and the timing of that and what that looks like, could be for another 2-year cycle as well. So that's kind of next steps there. Just some initiatives this year. We did do a survey pilot across all of our NSAA sports this year. And athletes grades 9 through 12 were surveyed just on their experiences. The goal were to help our coaches grow. So, I go over some of those results with them, and I essentially put them in their hands and expect them to be professionals with some of those as well. And make sure that in line with all surveys that I communicate with families prior, if you don't want your kid to participate or what have you. Overall results, I just summarized some of them here. I'm always heartened by it because they really are overwhelmingly positive. And the vast majority of our kids that are participating in our programs really enjoy that part of their school day. So positive team culture, there were probably 20 questions, but I just picked 4 that I thought were really important and indicative of what we do. Positive team culture, 87% of our students agreed or strongly agreed. Had fun, 84% strongly agreed with that statement. Proud member of their program, so they're proud of their community and participate in Bennington High School. That was the highest, 92% of our kids feel that way, which is good. If you have pride in what you do, you're going to carry yourself a certain way. And our coaches emphasize life lessons, right? Being on time, character, discipline, treating other people the way that they should be treated, sportsmanship. 87% of our students thought that our coaches made that a priority. Some other initiatives, we did digital ticketing this year. It's the first time we've had that option. I feel like that was well received. It went pretty smoothly. We use Bound as a vendor. Bound is a software provider that has more athletic facets to it, but we chose to go with the ticketing piece kind of to start because they had a way to do that. And the fee, there is a fee for each patron use. That fee is less through Bound than some of the other, trying to remember some of the names, GoFan and some other options for ticketing there. And it's because they provide their main source of revenue is the ticketing as a software provider, but they use that to develop and provide other athletic tools to use for departments. And I think the addition was received really positively to have that option at least this year. So I mentioned that to you last year and really happy to be able to do that this year. Right now, we're kind of researching switching to Bound for activity scheduling and other facets because it is a really smooth platform for doing so. And our current platform, if you go to our calendar, that's a platform called Our School. Our School has been purchased by another company, and Bound kind of seems the way a lot of states are going. It's been adopted in Iowa, Minnesota, and Florida. A number of schools in Nebraska are moving toward Bound. So that's something we're exploring. How can we do that for us? We did it with our summer camps here this summer. In the past, we've always used My School Bucks for that. We use Bound as a way to get our coaches kind of involved in the platform and kind of see if there's any feedback from our community. And so far, it seems pretty well received. The cost of that platform over time is based on the percentage of digital ticket sales. So if I can find ways to incentivize more people using digital ticket sales, the price of that goes down to the point where if we get it to 90%, it is free to use that platform. So obviously there's financial incentive for them, but there's some positives on the back end for us if we choose to go that direction. Some current topics with budget. This is very similar to last year. I mean, costs keep increasing. I'd love to say that the cost of officials have gone down and that just helps us out. It's not that way. Usually I get a contract from the people that assign our officials on a given year. And, I look back at last year's contract and it was $75 per game. And I look at this year and it's $85. And if you want to continue to get officials out to your games, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but not a ton, because that's what the schools in the area are generally paying for their officials. And again, our families kind of continue to expect more from their high school experience. I think all of us probably participated in things in high school, and kind of those side bells and whistles about what makes a high school event really special have evolved over time and continue to. So those put a little strain on us as well in terms of how to provide that great experience. We did not change varsity admission prices this year. There is no plan to change that next year either. Lower level admission prices, we did increase that from $3 to $4 for adults. I plan on keeping that next year, or we plan to do so. It still often does not cover the cost of officials at lower level events. We'll be $40 short, $50 short. And we make that up with our varsity admission. And so we may need to look at increasing those prices in the 26 and 27 school year. Oftentimes we receive just ad hoc, anecdotal comments when people come to our lower level events about, man, I can't believe this is so from our visitors. I can't believe it's so cheap. We pay full varsity prices at our home events. And so I do take pride in that, but also trying to make sure we're filling the budget matters too. Some other items about funding, again, just how it's done, very similar to last year. We did increase the cost this year for family and adult activity passes. I didn't receive negative feedback about that. We plan to keep it the same for next year. And then I just reiterate some of the things about cashless ticketing. Booster Club programs, just highlight the summary there of what was spent this year and just some examples of the way the Booster Club is supported, the Athletic Booster Club has supported our athletic teams. And then some other areas, the team concessions, we make, our teams fundraise a lot with that. And that's a great mechanism to do it. They have a funding share essentially that they do with profits. And so maybe they'll come in and they'll work a basketball game or they'll work a softball game or something like that. They provide meals to teams. Scholarships, our booster club is tremendously supportive of what we do. And they do that on a volunteer basis. Anything to get the word out about, hey, this is the work that these people are doing on a volunteer basis, especially those really large events like football games is appreciated because, they do that for free and just to help our kids out. And that's a really special thing. All right, some needs for our department. The tennis courts, I know that was mentioned earlier, plan to begin construction on that soon, so thank you for that and working through that process. Just add a note that we may explore additional on-site courts as needed based on size and numbers and feedback. Storage space across programs is just always a challenge when you have so many people. So, we've had our, I'm trying to lose my train of thought. We've had construction classes at school go in and build some shelving for us out of just simple wood like you'd have in your garage. We've done some of that to try to alleviate some of it. There's some conversation maybe about some outbuildings on campus eventually to try to provide some alleviation for that storage. Volleyball and basketball storage table replacement is still on there. I know that's come up in committee before. The current one is still original to the school. I think the challenge becomes, I think we need a custom one. And then, our bleachers are also 20 years old. So do we want to do that now and be a little short? So we're kind of working through those things still. Some facilities homes. Again, our vision is always that our kids will have the best possible experience to play and be involved in activities in the state of Nebraska. And so that requires some facilities expansion where needed, and some enhancements and just some possible areas and public facing spaces that you may consider. The competition, our stadium will become a competition stadium with 2 schools in it. And so, is the press box adequate to allow for game management in that situation as we had? A lot of competition stadiums, I think most, if not all, in the area have dressing room facilities for their athletes on site. And so I think, and I got a little bit, I looked at this earlier, I was like, I don't know how I managed to do this. But anyhow, the logistics of running practices and games for 2 schools on campus while you're having practices for schools on campus, right? So we could have a Thursday night where the NSA scheduled a varsity football game for the new school. And so there's 2 schools that come in, and then you have to have practice for Bennington High School as well. So how do you manage that? And what does that look like? And if you ever want to come up and kind of see how we manage those large events and shadow me for a night on a Friday night, we can kind of show you that and we can talk a little bit about, kind of why I think maybe a dressing room or something is necessary to help us with that. Visitor restrooms and concessions is something that we hear feedback on too. So those are always areas we're looking to explore if possible. And then stadium scoreboard replacement, it's getting a little long in the tooth, and sometimes we hear feedback to that extent as well. And then, I always leave on here again, just hopes. Jay Johannick, our baseball, our softball fields are excellent, right? They're great grass fields to play on. Sometimes you run into interesting situations though, where a turf field would be beneficial. We had conference baseball, the conference semifinals this past April, we had severe weather, had to move everybody into the high school, and Waverly and Norris were in the other semifinal down in Norris, and they were able to finish, which basically means that there's no way I can't finish the game that night. We have to find a way. The rain comes through, the pitching mound is kind of wrecked, and so we had to find another facility that night to play. And fortunately, Elkhorn North opened up their doors to us, and we finished about 11 o'clock that night. So it's doable. I mean, playing on grass is great. If you play on a great grass field, most athletes really do enjoy that. At the same time, there is some flexibility that comes if you have turf fields. And I think that's about all I have. Again, just thanking the board for the support, and it's a great place to be an athlete and somebody involved in activities. And I think we show that. Hopefully, we make the community proud. So just some pictures there. Carter Dittmer, was on TV for his speech efforts. our band themselves. So, yeah, that's it. So any questions that I might be able to answer or?
This next year we go Class A?
No, it'll be the year after this, and that's, we would go this year, but, Class A has essentially changed their rules, and that was as of last year, I believe. And they do it all in 2-year cycles now, so you can't go up during a 2-year cycle. And so, we will be at a Class A, well, actually, no, we will still be at a Class B level next year. Our enrollment in October will push us over that level. So that could have been the case, I guess is the way I would say it,
Yeah.
but it is not. We are still Class B across all sports. And so it's not like we're gonna go somewhere and they're gonna say, well, you guys shouldn't be here. Like, no, we're still Class B and we should be, and then we'll reach that threshold. Yeah, so I hope I answered your
Well,
question.
that's good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our unfinished business this evening. And the first item up is a review from the prior month, which we discussed, considered, and take action on our preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school handbooks. Appreciate the review last month, so this is something we've had a chance to review multiple times, but welcome to any questions or anything you want to highlight for us. I think we've been through it, but happy if there are questions still, we should get those answered.
Nope.
All right, I move to approve the preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school handbooks for the 25-26 school year as presented.
Second.
That was an equal tie.
We'll give it to him.
Okay, Jeremy, you're up for second. Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes. Motion passes. The next item is also a review. Discuss, consider, and take action to add and revise policies for our section 500. Policy committee reviewed those as part of our annual review, sections of the policy handbook. Any other questions on that? I know we discussed all of these last month. There were a lot of them. It's always good when you look through them, you find substantive and non-substantive things change. So Jody and Dr. Paz, thank you guys for that large project. Are there any questions from the board? Great. I move to approve the revision of the section 500 policies as presented.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes. Motion passes. Now on to our new business. I think we highlighted this earlier in the meeting, but there were several new policies to review. This will be our first reading this evening, just as a reminder to the board. So Dr. Plaza, do you want to highlight a couple of items? I know there were quite a few, so.
Yeah, I probably won't go through all 17, but I'll go through a few of them here. The first one I want to talk about is the workplace privacy provision. This is something that we've been talking about actually for a year, but recording those without their consent, it's not done very often within our district. But it is something that this would add another layer of security for us. And so policy just adds that it's not acceptable to record or take pictures of others without their consent, except for normal functions like you can record the student playing basketball game, but otherwise you gotta have their consent for any recordings. 40608 is the employee evaluation. If you remember, we approved the new appraisal system back in November or December, and so we want to make sure that the language within the new appraisal system matched the policy, and so that's the main updates within there. Student appearance, this will be the dress code policy that we discussed earlier. During my presentation, 504.112 is the cell phone policy. Again, this is matching the state statute that was addressed earlier in my report. 506.01 and 506.10 comes with a state statute that has us define male, female, and co-ed sports, and then it requires each school board to adopt a policy designating what those are. Male, female, or co-ed, and then that coincides with the physicals that they take as well, so that changes the physicals policy. 604.16 and 604.16R1 was behavior intervention that we discussed earlier, and so that would be both the policy and the regulation associated with it, which we already do within our school system. Let's see, dropping down to 1005.03, that's the parental involvement, which would specific laws associated with parental access to curriculum materials. A although they didn't change much for what we do at BPS since we adhere to those parameters already, just through our local decision-making. The policy does put specific parameters in place for contacting parents when conducting surveys. And so that's something that we'll have to change our practices to make sure we adhere to that as well. And then last one is 1005.13, parental access to library materials. This policy ensures that parents have the option to review or approve students checking out books and have a list of all of our materials online. Again, this policy won't change much for what we do at BPS since we already adhere to those things, but it will, we adhere to it through our local decision making, but it will turn it into policy because it's a state statute. So, questions on any of those?
Any questions?
And I would love to tell you we're done with policy, but it sounds like there's some cleanup language that's going to come on a few things through NASB at some point here this summer, and so don't be surprised if we have a new batch in July.
So we will do a second reading at the next meeting, and then if there are additional questions, follow up with Dr. Claus in the interim, or we can discuss at the next meeting.
Absolutely.
All right, next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on bid contracts for the second high school project. I think I alluded to this earlier. We did discuss this in our building and finance committee and are bringing it to the board for approval.
So on May 27th, we had our bid package was due for precast wall panels. And we did have 3 contractors that bid on that. The low contractor was Core Slab Structures with a base bid of $5,531,118. Our pre-bid budget for this was just under $5.8 million, and so we are under budget based on the base bid that we have at this time. There were 3 bids. You can see the high, the low there, were from the $5.5 million up to the $6.6 million. And so Core Slab Structures, they come very highly recommended. Building and Finance Committee asked questions just regarding bid amount, contractor experience, the ability to complete the project. Obviously, we're always worried about timelines. And there was no concerns about any of that from housing and construction. And so based on that information from DLR contractors, recommendation from the Building and Finance Committee, we would recommend the approval of Core Slab Structures for the precast wall panels. Just a quick reminder, this is the second bid package. We'll have a third bid package. I believe the next one is the tennis courts. And we'll continue to have these kind of one-offs until we get the larger bid package that have about 70% of the project in it, which will be in the fall, in the middle of fall. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? We kind of discussed pretty thoroughly in building and finance, but wanted to give you guys an opportunity as well. So if there's any concerns. All right, there is a motion proposed.
I move to award the bid contract for precast wall panels to Core Slab Structures for $5,531,118 for the second high school project.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Jody, call the roll, please.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes,
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
motion passes. All right, the next item is for us to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale by the district of one or more of the series of its general obligation school building bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $112 million.
Perfect.
We have the
So-
experts here.
Yeah.
So you're
Go to hear you.
perfect timing.
Let's see if he has to say anything or not. See what happens. But resolution just provides the district with the financial flexibility to sell bonds. And so 3 things come of this resolution. It recognizes the results of the successful bond election. It'll authorize the reimbursement of the bond fund and the special building fund if needed. And it authorizes the board to sell up to the $112 million in bonds that were approved in the last election. DA Davidson recommends that we adopt the resolution to ensure the district can respond to efficiently to any market conditions or whatever our situation is as construction-related costs come in. Having this authority in place just allows us to be flexible and adapt as needed as things are showing up. So kind of a reminder, our current plan is to use $10 million of our special building fund to kind of cover this initial phase of construction. We think that'll get us to roughly November, December, January of this year. That allows us to delay these bond sales, continue to look at market conditions. It reduces our interest costs on the front end, And then obviously we can't levy for these bonds until January 26th. And so Building and Finance Committee discussed this 2 meetings ago. We just didn't get it on the agenda last month. And, they discussed the details of the authorization, had a great question and answer session with DA Davidson. And we're requesting the resolution. They request I come to the full board for approval. So that's what I got. Any questions on that?
Having not been in that good question and answer session, what are some of the highlights of that discussion?
Trying to remember back, I know, so one thing that we're constantly looking at right now is what can we sell bonds for at this moment? Where are the interest rates? What do the market conditions look like? And so, initially when we put a model together, I think it was to sell like $60 million in 25, 40 million in 26, and the remaining afterwards. But we did have a good discussion of, okay, is that still the right plan? Or should we have a smaller issuance on the first one? And there's a little instability in the market still, or maybe it's stabilizing by then, who knows? But continue to look at it as it goes along. And, or maybe we get to that moment and all of a sudden bonds are in an amazing spot and we want to have a larger bond sale within the 2025. And so there are just a bunch of questions about what the current market conditions look like. If the sale is today, what would the recommendations be? Those type of items.
I think to the limitations of the process, given that we only meet once a month, right? So we have to have some flexibility given what the market could be doing in the interim period. So that was another factor that we need to discuss.
And we talked about the process. It's not going to be a sell $112 million of bonds overnight. And, we will always bring it back to the full board, assuming that there's, time to do so, unless there's not a reason, in which case we would come back and explain what that was. So it'll always come back to the full board so everybody knows where the bond sale, where the current projections are, what that looks like in the short and long term.
Is there like a certain threshold to pull the trigger when we do decide to do it?
Ooh, Cody, sorry, buddy.
We were talking about if the conditions are right, I'm just curious what that threshold is. Like, oh yeah, let's pull that slot machine.
No, that's a great question. Cody Wickham with DA Davidson. We don't have a true interest cost bogey, if you will, that if we hit it, we jump. We're just trying to use the best rationale that we can. It's tough that when you try to play the timing, the market game, sometimes it can backfire. So really, we're just going off some of the analytics that we have. And I brought a little bit just to share with you. I had our trading desk print off from the Bloomberg World Interest Rate Probability Rate, or probability chart, and the likelihood of an interest rate cut, our best chance of that is at the December Fed meeting, which is a 64.8% chance. So normally, other districts that are in your position, we just sold bonds last month for Elkhorn and Pillion, because they need cash. The projects are going. You guys have a little bit more flexibility because you're putting in your own cash. So if there's a reason for us to wait and see if this comes to fruition, that could save you quite a bit in total interest costs. So we're just, because we have that flexibility, this is the parameters resolution that authorizes the sale, and then we'll just continue to monitor it. If we see a dip, we'll be able to pounce. But we don't have a particular number that we're targeting. It's going to just depend on what we see in the next 4 to 6 months.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, I recommend the approval of the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale by the district of one or more series of its general obligation school building bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $112 million.
Second.
Guys are killing me tonight.
Go for it.
Who's different? Okay. Second by Steve. Jody, call the roll, please.
That was Steve?
Yes, second by Steve.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I tried my hardest.
All right, the next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action to approve the contract with DLR for construction of the second high school.
So during the 22-23 school year, DLR Group was selected as the architect for the second high school project. Since that time, they've worked collaboratively with us on all 3 bond proposals. Have been a really good partner. At this point, we're about 25% done with the total drawings of the second high school. They continue to work on those. Throughout the course of this, we've entered into not temporary contracts, but contracts for each of the phases. And so this would be the overall final contract. That's up for your approval tonight. We had our attorney look through the entire contract, review it, amended it to make sure that it safeguarded the district's interest. Probably the most important aspect of the contract is the rate on there, which is 5.9% of the final construction cost. Based on those projections, assuming the project remains on budget, we anticipate the remaining cost to be $5,134,314. That was the amount that was communicated throughout the bond proposal as well. If construction costs came in under budget, obviously that fee would come down as well. DLR has been a reliable and a collaborative partner through each of those proposals, and we appreciate their continued work and professionalism, and we're excited as they lead this design and development of the new high school.
Thank you. Any questions on the architectural agreement up for approval this evening? All right. Is there someone that would like to propose the motion?
I move to approve the contract with DLR Group for architectural services related to the second high school project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Jody, call the roll, please.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, the next item up for discussion this evening is for us to discuss, consider, and take action to appoint Karen Newberg to fill a vacancy on the Board of Education. And I think I'll take this one since I was charged last month with reaching out to Kara as a former board member. And I think the discussion was good last month. I think we wanted to find somebody, given the projects we had going with the strategic plan, the second high school, someone that could jump in with these relatively short remaining term of 18 months, given Christie's departure, and jump right in. So less onboarding, the advantage of her experience. And I had a conversation with Kara since our last meeting. I think I surprised her because I asked her to meet for lunch and just catch up. And so I think she was shocked at first, but grateful that I think we saw her in that role and was willing to take on the task of serving for 18 months. One of the items that I know everybody asked me to follow up on was to make sure that she was not planning on running the second term or after this term. And she did indicate she is not running. And so this would be for a limited time of 18 months. And I think that's right. Part of our discussion was really not wanting to give someone a leg up in the next election or let the community decide, given that that was a 4-year term. So I'm happy to elaborate further if there are other questions, but it was a great discussion. I think she's excited to jump back in and probably doesn't feel like she's been gone for too long. So it was a short sabbatical, I guess you could say. So I'm grateful for the willingness to jump in.
Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Questions from anybody? All right. I think there's a resolution that needs to be read, so I will go ahead and do that. Gosh, I want to listen to me talk for the next 5 minutes. Resolution information here. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Bennington Public School District pursuant to Nebraska Revised Statute 32-570 that based upon the ballots cast by the members of the Board of Education, the Board of Education should and does hereby appoint Karen Newberg, a qualified registered voter of the Bennington Public School District, to fill the vacancy created by Christy Ryan's resignation. Said appointment is effective upon passage of the resolution and shall commence upon administration of the oath of office and shall continue for the remainder of the unexpired term of Christy Ryan. And the motion, I move to approve the resolution as presented to appoint Karen Newberg to fill the vacancy on the Bennington Board of Education. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes. Motion passes. And Dr. Claus, do you want to reach out to Kara and just tell her that she, hopefully she can be present at the July board meeting?
Absolutely.
I'm guessing she's sitting home just watching.
She's probably watching online. Hi, Kara.
Come on, guys, come on.
You guys are optimistic.
Yes, I will happily do that.
Great, thank you very much. All right, that brings us to our last item this evening, which is our executive session to discuss certificated staff negotiations. As information for folks in the room this evening, we do not expect action out of the executive session this evening. Just a quick reminder, if I can, before we go into session, our next regular board meeting is July 14th, 6 o'clock here in the district office. We had our groundbreaking ceremony at noon today, so that was great. Thank you, Stacy, and all who contributed to that. Appreciate that. And our budget retreat is set for July 16th at 5 o'clock here in our office, and obviously several committees will be meeting this month as well. All right, there is a motion regarding executive session.
I move to enter into executive session to evaluate the job performance of an individual and prevent the needless injury to the reputation of that individual, and for the negotiations between the board and the superintendent.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Tim. And Jody, call the roll, please.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you all for being here.
Allison, do you expect action?
No, do not. Thank you.
No, I was doing the same thing. I was doing the same thing. Develop it.